Today's group counseling session is going to be on bullying and peer conflict. The target group is going to be middle school, probably entering ninth grade. I want to say anywhere between seventh, eighth, or ninth grade, and they're going to be using a few counseling theories on here. So, hello, welcome everybody. So, I'm glad you're here today. So, this group is a space where we can talk honestly and safely about some of the challenges you may be facing. Some of the challenges you may be facing at school, and especially when it comes to bullying or conflict with peers. Just know that you're not alone in these experiences, and we're here to support each other. Understand that we have confidentiality here, so anything that's discussed in here will stay in here. However, if you do mention anything about harming yourself or others, possibly, I would have to alert the proper authorities. But other than that, this is a free space for you to talk and just relax. You're not in the school, you're not in the confines of your classrooms where people might be judging you or where you think things are going to be happening. This is a space where you're free to engage, and we're going to go over a couple of things. So, to get started, I want to do a quick check in. So, on a scale of like 1 to 10, 1 being not affected at all, and 10 being very affected, how much of us in here is, affected by whether it's peer conflict or bullying in regards to, how it's impacting you? Honestly, I would say, depending on where I've been, I know growing up, not even in elementary, I'd say middle school too, I faced it myself. But we'll go with each of one of you guys and kind of explain how you feel. So, from 1 to 10, so Jerry, you mentioned you feel about a 6 right now. And then Esmeralda, you said about a 7. Okay, so we're having different viewpoints right here. And so from here, we kind of want to understand that everyone, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, you belong. And if you don't feel that way, just make sure you know that you're loved, and that I want to make sure that you feel respected, whether you're at home or whether you're here. These shouldn't be places where you feel out of touch or out of sync. You should be comfortable in the places that you're in. So let's talk about these things. Pure conflict, bullying. These are things that make people feel, the opposite of good, right? Sometimes they make you feel kind of powerless and maybe even ashamed. So let's connect with this idea that we have. So I want to share. I want to. We're gonna have a prompt here. So for each of us, we're gonna share one thing that kind of makes you unique, or one quality that you like about yourself. So we're gonna try to reframe this instead of thinking very negatively. What are some things that you like about yourself? And we go to each student, and you want to respect the the genuineness and the differences that they might have. One student might be really good at arts and crafts. One might be very hands on, very technical. Someone else might be a good yapper, someone that likes to talk a lot and can carry conversations. Someone else might be a great listener. And so these are things that you want to allow the students to maybe share. And if the students aren't able to share at the time, you yourself share something about yourself that you might find unique. Um, Something that you might find unique amongst your peers in the classroom is that I personally, I like to be outdoors, which is weird to say because we're in the classrooms, we're in this confines, but you want to, that's just me. And so from there, me as a counselor, I'd like to be able to share a little bit so that the students who might not feel comfortable enough to share are able to share. And for those that already are, that they get reassured that this is an open space and that they can talk how they feel. And so from there, we continue. So, when people are unkind to us or when we have, repeated conflicts with others, it can start to shape the way we think, whether it's about ourselves, about school, the different settings that we're in at home, and even about the future too. And so this is how we use some theories help us recognize that those thoughts and challenges, and these thoughts might challenge, the ones that don't really serve us as much. Um, what's the word? Cognitive behavioral therapy, pretty much. Um, and so from here, we're going to be doing kind of like a little bit of a group activity. And so talking about reframing, you know. And so you go to each person and you want them to write down a negative thought that they've had about themselves or others during a time of of conflict. And so from there you want to have them try to reframe that thought into something more realistic, something more empowering. Some unhelpful thoughts that I mean personally that I've heard, um, that I'm fat, that I'm that, oh, like, I saw you rolling to class. That's one of the insults that I've heard growing up. Um, and so that's a very unhelpful and just negative thought in my head. And so one way to reframe it is for me to reframe this, I would say I have a lot to give. I'm a big person, and it's something that I've constantly been working on. But to reframe it, instead of being the target, you kind of want to reframe it and kind of change these thoughts and opinions about yourself into something positive. So, for me, I always say, hey, more to love. For me, it's being able to, just change this different mentality and know that, some people have different health defects, different health concerns growing up. And so, what I always say is, hey, I know how I am right now and I'm working towards it. And, as long as I'm always building and working towards, being better, being healthier, I'm doing good. It's better than just giving up, I always say. And so from there, trying to reframe it, um, taking those unhelpful thoughts and ideas that these students might have about themselves or that some others might have said to them, and try to reframe each of those. And so each student kind of goes through theirs. They share their thoughts and opinions, and maybe each of them kind of gives something supportive to say about the other ones as well, in order to continue trying to reframe each and everybody's thoughts and opinions into something a bit more positive. So after that, we try a kind of getting into group discussion and everything, and then following that we do practice simple mindfulness activities to help manage stress within these tough moments, because a lot of times these students, they don't have the time to just take a step back and breathe in deeply and out even more deeply. And so we do some breathing exercises, for just focusing on the feeling of the breath, slowing things down, bringing things to a pause, slowly inhaling and then exhaling, and just having that time to decompress. And so from there, think of one. So from for as far as group planning, we go to the next part. We think of you try to tell the students, think of one thing that you can do this week to find yourself Think of one thing that you can do this week if you find yourself in a conflict with a certain other person, and what would you do? It could be walking away. It could be using a calming strategy, asking an adult for help, and practicing, a confident response. And so from there, we continue on. So, today we talked about how, bullying and peer conflict can impact us and how to take back some control over our own thoughts and reactions to that. You all show a lot of courage today by being here and sharing. And I just wanted to say, let's, kind of go back to our earlier check in from where we were, where we checked in as far as, being affected by bullying. And then from there, kind of see where it gets gauged. So for some people, might have changed a little bit. If not, that's why we're gonna have follow up sessions to kind of see where we are, where we're going, and then kind of go from there. And that would be the end of it. Following that, we have a few questions to answer at the end of the video. So for this part, define the counseling theories that I applied in my group counseling session. In today's group session, I used three counseling theories: Adlerian theory, cognitive behavioral therapy, and mindfulness based stress reduction. So, Adlerian theory helped build a sense of belonging and encourage students to reflect, on their own personal strengths. Cognitive behavioral therapy allows students to challenge those unhelpful thoughts caused by bullying or conflict and help them reframe them in a more positive light. And then for mindfulness based stress reduction, that was used to teach mindfulness and breathing techniques to reduce emotional distress. Following that, which students are participating in your counseling session? So these were, I want to say, middle school to very early high school students. So I'd say eighth grade, maybe ninth grade. These are those kind of students. Describe how you will apply counseling theory in your session. So yeah, I applied each one of those theories. So Adlerian theory, through by opening activity where students shared personal strengths, and then reinforcing their sense of value and social belonging. And then for cognitive behavioral therapy, it was incorporating the reframing exercise, from the negative thoughts and practicing kind of rewriting the script and reframing it to more, balanced and more empowering perspectives. And then for mindfulness based, sorry, the helicopter stress reduction was used during the mindfulness activity to help students regulate their stress and build internal calm when faced, with conflict. And finally, identify group counseling referral sources and how you might refer students to your group. For these, I would say there's a variety of sources, including, whether it's teachers, support staff, school counselors, administrators, parents, or, through even self referral. Um, there are some common, indicators for a student that might, they, either they themselves or others might think they need a referral, whether it's like changes in behavior, if they're getting into disputes a lot of times. Sometimes it's also like disciplinary referrals too for whether they're fighting or, or if some staff might have reported bullying. These are all like different circumstances where a referral might take place. But yeah, that would be it. Thank you very much.